the world's greatest radio.
We give you a reason to stay.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Alrighty, good morning and welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio. You now are in touch with the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host. I am Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. Today's program will be focusing in the 8th area of people activity, sex. There was some questions that were asked by one of my Gmailers. He has written in many times, but we're going to focus in on there. But as usual, if you would like to go off subject, you can, or off topic, you can. It's all right. Mr. Fuller will answer any questions that you have, whether it regards to sex or anything else. He will do that. So the call-in number is 1-877-932-9766. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. You can also listen to the program by going to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage and make sure you hit Listen Live. That'll put you directly in contact with us and the show, and you're good. You can also go to the YouTube channel and type in the word Talktainment, and then scroll down to the word radio, and then scroll down to, or type in the word Talktainment number 2, and you're there. And while you're there, hit the subscribe and the like button. And as usual, you can go to Facebook.com/Talktainment also. So those are the ways that you can get in contact with the show, and we will be repeating those throughout the show. Okay, now, and don't forget, we will be doing donations. You can donate this hour, but the donations are for the second hour's production. The first hour is on Talktainment, so you don't have to worry about that. But we will be repeating that, and there will be a special announcement, usually in the half hours of both of the 2 hours that we have. You requested the second hour, so now it's here, but it has to be paid for. Lights, camera, action, telephone calls, especially those that call in from long distances. Those budgets have to be met so that we can continue on with this program. Let's see, I think that's all out the way. Okay, let's do this. We have been compiling a list of movies or recommendations for movies, Mr. Fuller's movies, and many of you have asked about that and wanted it. So we've been doing 3 per program. So let's start off, this is for review, because believe me, there are those that didn't get it and want to get it, so let's go on, and then we'll have Mr. Fuller give 3 more. The first book that was recommended was a BBC documentary called The History of Racism. You get that. Number 2 was I, Claudius. Number 3 is Gone with the Wind. Now, these are all suggestions of movies Mr. Fuller is compiling. The fourth would be The Shawshank Redemption. Fifth, Casablanca. The seventh, The Godfather trilogy, particularly 1 and 2. Number 7 would be the movie Shane. Number 8, Hombre. Number 9, High Noon. Number 10, Bound for Glory. Number 11, The Grapes of Wrath. Number 12, Sounder. Number 13, Wild River. Number 14, Splendor in the Grass. Number 15, The Wizard of Oz. Number 16, Treasure of Sierra Madre. Number 17, Paths of Glory. And number 18, Gandhi. So today's entry by Mr. Fuller will be number 19, 20, and 21. Let's say good morning to Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And how are you this particular day?
I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Okay, let's start off with movie number 19 and then 20 and then 21. What is your suggestion for movie number 19?
Okay, that last one was Paths of Glory.
Paths of Glory and then Gandhi. You mentioned Gandhi as the last one last week. Okay.
And then a movie called Peyton Place. I saw it recently again. I saw it many years ago.
Peyton?
Some lessons in that.
Okay, Peyton Place. Okay.
It's about a small town in Maine.
Okay.
People there and what their comings and goings.
Okay.
And there are lessons to be learned there.
Okay.
Particularly in a court scene. But I'll talk about these things later on. And when I post them on my website, I intend to make a list of things to look for in all of the movies put together.
Okay.
As far as lessons to be learned by people. I think that's an easy way for people to sometimes learn lessons about their existence on the planet. In the real world, you might say. And even though most of the movies are fictional, they're based on things that you can reasonably expect people to be involved in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I would say the next one would be The Cruel Sea.
The Cruel Sea?
Yes.
Okay.
That's an English movie made in England during World War II.
Okay.
About a vessel engaged in submarine chasing operations.
Okay.
And then there's another one. Now, this next series will be mostly what you call World War II movies, which was a momentous event, according to many scholars. One of the greatest events to take place that changed many things throughout the world. And so you look at these movies with that in mind. And so the Cruel Sea would be among those. Of course, Casablanca would be among those too.
Mm-hmm.
But From Here to Eternity.
Okay, now Here to Eternity. Okay, Eternity. Okay.
12 O'Clock High.
Okay, wait a minute. 22 is 12 o'clock high. Okay.
Yanks, just one word, Y-A-N-K-S.
Okay, Yanks, got that.
D-Day, the 6th of June.
D-Day, the 6th of June. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
That's June the 6th, 1944.
Okay.
About the events of the Normandy landing.
Okay.
In what they call the invasion of Europe.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that's pretty good. We got Peyton Place, The Cruel Sea, Here to Eternity, 12 O'Clock High, Yanks, and D-Day, June 6th, speaking of 1944. Okay, so now we have 24 entries, 16 to go, of the top or the list of recommendations for the Mr. Fuller's suggested movies. Okay, that's good. All righty. Very good. So let me put that away for next week. We will add some for next week. Okay. The eighth area of people, people activity, sex. You've mentioned many things about sex, but it was interesting because one of our Gmailers wrote in about the sex and had a question concerning that, and I thought it would be appropriate that we delve into that area. And before we go into that, let's take this call before we get started on the topic of sex. Okay, caller, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning.
Reggie. This is Reggie from Charlotte, North Carolina. Mr. Fuller, if for 1 week, if every non-white person or every black person on the planet, at every second of that week, produced justice according to your definition of justice, would white supremacy automatically fall, or would the white supremacists still have to, those who practice white supremacy, would they still have to be willing to not practice that system in order for it to fall?
Oh, yes. Eventually, you would have to persuade anything short of what they call Armageddon, meaning it would just blow up the whole world and would not be just a mass slaughter of people. At some point, we'll have to come to some reasonable agreement with each other, all of the people on the planet, about all grievances, not just racial, but that would be the first one, because you can't get to the others without dealing with the racial issue first. That's the premise of the entire United Independent Compensatory concept. You can't solve any major problem among people of the planet without taking into consideration the solving of the race problem first. That should be the priority, because trying to ignore the race problem and get around to it later and solve other problems between people. The theory is, the concept is, that won't work. You have to solve the race problem first. Why? Because that's the biggest problem, and it causes all of the other problems. Or it makes all of the other problems much worse, including sexual and religious problems, economic problems, all of the problems in all of the 9 areas of activity. The race problem is the main one. If anybody just runs an experiment in any of the 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, and they just say that we're going to try to solve the problem, say, in education, or in sex, or in religion, or political problems. The first issue is going to be race. Or if it doesn't show up right away, it's going to show up immediately after you start trying to solve that problem. And then everything shuts down. Right at that moment, everything stops. You can't get children educated. They start talking about busing and all this. Everything becomes more complicated because of the race issue. You always run into it. No matter how you try to run away from it and say, well, we'll get to that later. It never works. I haven't seen any evidence where it ever works anywhere in the world. It always blocks off everything. So, to answer the question is, it's not just one thing that you do. That's why I wrote the book, the textbook for victims of white supremacy. It's combinations of things. You don't set aside a day. It's no celebratory day that is set aside. It's an evolving process that takes in every minute of the day of your entire life until the problem is solved. It's not a stopping and a starting point. It's not like some event that you can set up, which seems to be what the caller is saying. Could you set up some event and a package that would actually do it? All right? No. It has to be all of the people on the planet doing and not doing. Because that's everything, doing and not doing, in order for any problem to be solved. How are problems solved? That's the question. They're solved by things that you do and say, and things that you don't do and say. That's all it is, do's and don'ts. And these things have to be constant in order for it to take effect.
Okay.
So, that's why I wrote the code book, about the use of time and energy.
Mm-hmm.
If you just want to be specific, and you have to be specific, it's right there on the economics. How do you use your time and energy if you're a black person, a person of color? There's just 4 things there. That's all you really need. 4 things. And just start doing those 4 things, and then the world will change almost overnight. That's the concept. Now, it hasn't been tested, but we could put it to a test since we don't have any kind of testing apparatus. Might as well start with that one and see if it works.
Okay. As a sidebar, before we go into our main topic, which is going to be sex, Mr. Fuller, is the threat of mutual mass destruction used as a tool to scare people into a false area of nuclear detente? In other words, has a business decision been made to scare the people so that the supremacists, the white supremacists, can still rake in cash in a lot of areas, defense industry, in areas that are subsidiary to that?
If I understand the question, the answer is, without going into details, everything that a white supremacist does is to make themselves more powerful. They don't deliberately do anything knowingly.
Yes.
That will weaken any of their power in any of the 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, or war. They monitor these areas of activity among themselves constantly to see to it if they're producing any weak spots.
Yes.
Just like going through a factory. If you're running a factory, you constantly watch your machine and see if it's running smoothly.
Yes.
And they make sure that the non-white people in all of these areas of activity are always doing something that's going to lead to disaster.
Okay. So again, is the threat, or the so-called threat, of nuclear detente used as a tool to keep people basically in check? Because if I can blow you up and you can blow me up, then why would you want to do that? Because you're going to die anyway, so why would you want to fire off a missile that would cause that destruction? You would have to live in the aftermath. So is it used as a detente? In other words, is a nuclear threat false, basically?
Sure, but the white supremacists always make sure that they have more power than anybody else in anything.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's
the whole idea.
Okay, that's understood.
Yeah, racism is about power.
Yeah, gotcha.
All right?
Okay.
So they just see to it that if other people have any type of, an AK-47 or sword or nuclear bomb, they just see to it, well, if you got one, I got 2. Or maybe 3 or 4 dozen.
Okay.
To your 1.
All right.
So, now let's sit down and talk from that point of view.
Right.
All right. They always talk from a point of view of strength.
All right. Let's take a phone call. Caller, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Mr. Fuller. How are you doing this morning?
Still learning.
Thank you so much for your advice a couple weeks ago. It was very helpful in terms of my job situation. I have another question. How overall, from listening to you and your book, how does this really stop this white supremacy when it feels to me that we're just being more compliant in the system by following your rules? Yes, it's making my life better, and I agree with that. But how does it ultimately end the system of white supremacy by following all of your rules and codes?
you end it by eroding the system. See, anytime black people learn anything constructive, see, it all comes down to mostly the second area of activity, and that is education. What is education? Learning everything that you need to know in solving problems. Black people's greatest flaw, I was thinking about this just the other day, if the question was asked, what is the greatest flaw that black people have? Their greatest flaw. We all have flaws. White people have flaws. Everybody has flaws. But collectively, what is the greatest flaw that black people have worldwide? I mean, if you have to just think about that for 50 hours, the greatest flaw, not just, this flaw, that flaw, but the greatest of all flaws. The greatest of all flaws is non-problem solving. We are not people who concentrate on problem solving. We don't have a history of concentrating on problem solving, not recent history anyway. Now, somebody might say 2,000 years ago, yes, they were great problem solvers, great mathematicians and all like that. No, black people do not wake up in the morning and go to bed at night thinking constantly about all the problems that exist in the entire universe and think about themselves as being the center of how to solve those problems. But we can do that, since we are not known as problem solvers and we usually not interested in solving problems. We want somebody else to solve our problems. We don't mind making a whole bunch of them. I mean, we just go about doing things just any kind of old way. No kind of plan, but it's understood. See, that when you're born as a prisoner of war, then you let somebody else do the thinking. That's the first mistake. If somebody else is supposed to do all the thinking for you, all you have to do is just act. And then try to, what you call, enjoy life. All right? Without solving any problems at all. Let somebody else handle the problem solving. I'm just going to try to enjoy whatever problems they solve. Now, that's the slave mentality. All right? Because that's where the white supremacists want black people to be. So, we'll just change that simply by saying, rather than a problem maker or a person who just cries about a problem when somebody brings it to me, or when I get into a problem myself, I mean by doing things that don't make sense, which we do a lot of, I'm going to instead start thinking about problem solving 24/7. Every move that I make is going to be about solving a problem. Now, that might hurt our brains for a little while, but I think we could get very used to it in a very short period of time. If we just concentrate on it and say, hey, problem solving is fun. See, we never think of problem solving as fun. We never think of problem solving as fun. We want to avoid anything that has to do with problem solving and go have some fun.
Okay.
All right? That's what we look forward to, which is okay. But why not make problem solving fun? People do it on a minor level, both black people and white people, all people, and little things like, you're kind of bored, so you sit and do what? In the waiting room in a doctor's office. You might work on a what? Crossword puzzle. A crossword puzzle, that's problem solving. All right? But getting beyond a crossword puzzle, all of a sudden, no, we don't want to be involved in no problem solving at all.
Okay.
Working a crossword puzzle may be a little fun.
Might be.
But any kind of other problem, no. No, I'm a run from it.
I'm way over for a break, so I have to do this. TalkTainMenRadio.com is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here's one I'm going to share with you, and it's called Your Time to Travel. And the way things are going, you need some time. But anyway, that show is produced by Ricky Tice here at TalkTainMenRadio.com. all the latest information on your time to travel, the various destinations that you may want to travel. And as a little sidebar, right now, you probably do not want to go to Cancun, Mexico, because of the gang warfare going down there. But I guess they'll solve that problem, since we are talking about solving problems. But anyway, that show, Your Time to Travel, is an exclusive to TalkTainMenRadio.com. And all you have to do is go to the TalkTainMenRadio.com homepage, look under Your Time to Travel for Rick and Ricky Tyus, tell you all about the latest moves in traveling. So click on the programs for the scheduled time. That's from TalkTainMenRadio.com. That's radio the way it should be heard. I am Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Now, today's topic is sex in the system of white supremacy racism. But as you know, that we oftentimes go off topic to discuss whatever it is that you call about. But that is our main focus, is going to be on sex. And let's see, in the remaining moments before I have to go to commercial, and we will give Mr. Fuller time to think about this. This comes from my brother from South Africa. He says this: Mr. Neely Fuller, I do not understand black women here in South Africa. They say they want a good guy, but if you are honest and polite to black women, they don't respond in a positive way. My parents used to go to the river to court women. We don't have clean rivers anymore. Where can a black man meet an honest black woman and make it work? Number one, how and where did you, Mr. Fuller, meet the woman you settled down with? And if you don't mind, Mr. Fuller, ask, how did you make it work? And then number two, is it healthy for a man to stay without sex for a long period? Waiting for quality females is taking its toll, but having sex with women who want money in exchange is also unsatisfying. Black women here in South Africa seem to have unrealistic expectations of black men.
Well, that's a lot of questions, and so I just try to answer them broadly. I mean, because there's so many of them. Usually the compensatory manner is to take one question at a time, and don't move to the second question until you have thoroughly answered the first question.
Okay.
Okay. But I'll try to, just give a synopsis of answers, of all of those questions, simply by saying, first of all, you can never get it the way that it ought to be. Okay? Not in the system of racism. Simply because you can't get anything the way it ought to be in the system of racism. That's something, that's a big wake-up call. You can't get your relationships, none of them, the way that they should be. You may get it to a satisfactory level, but it's still not the way it ought to be. Why? Because the system of white supremacy doesn't allow any relationship between any people to be the way it should be.
Okay, hold it right there, Mr. Fuller. We have to break here. Anyway, Mr. Fuller, he had asked, where can a black man meet an honest black woman and make it work? Then he asked this: how and where did you meet, Mr. Fuller, the woman you settled down with? And if you don't mind, how did you make it work?
Well, broadly and specifically, I would say broadly / specifically, I would simply say, once I understood the kind of world that I was in, I got with the person that I could find. I mean, whether we ran into each other, and then it went from there. And then I kept in mind the world that I was in, and was still learning the world that I was in at that particular time. That was a long time ago. And the world that I was in was run by the white supremacists. That's the main thing to remember, okay? Which means, like I said before, the so-called relationship is not going to be any better than tacky, all right? There's three types of arrangements that you can make in the system of white supremacy. Either broadly speaking, that is, people interacting with each other anywhere on the planet, or when it comes to a so-called quote-unquote personal relationship. So these words didn't immediately come to my mind, but over a period of time, I concluded that it was so. And that's what makes the so-called relationship, to the extent that it can work, work. That's all it is. I mean, you can almost pick anyone that you can, what you call halfway get along with. I mean, but you start with the premise that it's not going to be the way that it should be. You have to start with that in mind, because it's not going to be. You can fake it, but see, that fake won't hold up. The system of white supremacy is geared, first of all, it does not allow the black male to be a man. You're never going to be a man in the system of white supremacy. And the black female understands that at a subliminal level. She knows she's dealing with a boy. All right? All black males are boys in the system of white supremacy. There's not a single man that's black anywhere on the planet, any hour of any day, that qualifies to the title of man.
In the system of
white supremacy.
Okay.
That is absolutely impossible. It can't be done. No matter how you go around and beat your chest or jump up and down, I mean, in your ceremonies and whatnot, and, and boast and be proud and all of that. You're just an overgrown boy.
in the system.
In the system.
There you go. Make that plain.
That goes with the deal.
Okay.
So therefore, you're not in position to dictate anything to a black female if you're a black male, because it's difficult for a female who wants to be a woman. She's a female. The black female is just a female, but she can't become a woman, really, without a man.
In the system.
And it's in the system of white supremacy, she cannot become a woman. Why? Because a woman is the womb of man, and a woman is not looking for a boy. She's looking for a man. And among black males, there are none. There can't be any in the system of white supremacy.
Thank you.
Which is why every black male should understand he will never be nothing in the system of white supremacy that's worthy of any regard. It goes with it. Otherwise, why get rid of white supremacy? If you could become a man in the system of white supremacy and you're black, why get rid of white supremacy? Just go with the flow. But you can't be a man in the system of white supremacy.
Make it plain.
And once the black male understands that, that's a dynamite thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And a dynamite thing to understand. But we are not qualified to tell a black female or any female what to do about anything and what not to do.
Okay.
You know?
He goes.
Or even, we can make suggestions.
Right.
So all you can do, like I did, I resolved myself to it. Well, I'm a boy. I am like a slave chained in the bottom of a ship to a female. We're chained together. We have no protection for each other. We can't give any. We can just give nurturing. We call ourselves care mates because we're really not qualified to be husband and wife. We can just be care mates. Why? We are mated. We are mated. I mean, we're strung together. Okay? Look at it like that. We are in a war. And one prisoner of war is chained to another prisoner of war, and one happens to be a male, one happens to be a female. When you look at it just that way, but you're still in chains, and both of you are under the jurisdiction of a greater power, that greater power being racist man and racist woman, the white supremacists of this planet.
Okay. Now,
when you look at it just that way, then you stop looking for that female who's perfect.
Okay.
You are nowhere near perfect yourself.
Okay. Now,
you're not even qualified to be even in the running.
He goes on to
any black female, and it says so in the code book, that pays you any attention at all is giving you more than you deserve.
Okay.
because you don't deserve attention. You're a baby. But you can get the attention that a baby would get. But remember, you're not a man.
Okay.
You're a baby.
In the system.
You're a boy.
Mm-hmm.
You're not grown.
Okay. He says this, continuing and ending. He says, is it healthy for a man to stay without sex for a long period? In other words, he says, waiting for a quality female is taking its toll, but having sex with women who want money in exchange is also unsatisfying. Black women in South Africa seem to have unrealistic expectations of black men. But the key question, is it healthy for a man to stay without sex for a long period?
No. That's why you have sex drive. Your sex drive is letting you know it's sex time. All right? But you have to have everything in place to meet that time when it comes. But in a system of white supremacy, you can't guarantee that. So your sex drive is going to kick in before you're prepared to take care of it. So that makes the problem right there. So you go ahead and have sex, but you got to have it with the understanding that everything is out of order. And nothing is going to work to your satisfaction in the long run.
You have to understand
for both the male and the female.
Mm-hmm.
See, you can only have three types of relationships in the system of white supremacy with anybody. It's called a tragic arrangement in the code book. That's tacky, trashy, and terroristic. So the best you can hope for is a very tacky arrangement. I mean, if nothing is going to work smooth, you should expect that each and every day. But knowing that, then you're not disappointed. Now, in this conversation, in the question that was asked, they said black females seem to have great expectations. Well, these great expectations, they're going to have a whole lot of great disappointments in the black male and in the white one. A lot of black females are chomping at the bit to blonde their hair and lighten their skin. I've heard this is going on in South Africa, thinking that they can gain the favor of white men. I don't care how much paint you put on or how many blonde wigs you wear, you're still a black female, and you're going to produce offspring that are not white. Okay? So go in that direction. That's going to be a failure right there. It's going to be chaos because you're still going to be treated like a black female because that's what you are. And in the system of white supremacy, black is subordinate to white in all areas of activity. You can't get that equality through the bedroom. You have to straighten out everything else first. Like the black male has to become a man. Then you have equality. But the black male cannot become a black man. The black male cannot become a black man, M-A-N, in the system of white supremacy. It's totally incompatible. It won't work. It's impossible for that to happen. Okay. So therefore, it's just a make-do situation. The relationships are going to be sloppy. That's all I'm saying. It's going to be tacky. That's what tacky is. Sloppy.
All right.
That's the best you can hope for.
TalkTainMenRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTainMenRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That is radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. You can call into the show by calling 1-877-932-9766. Our on topic today is sex in the system of white supremacy, racism. But he will answer any other call that does not necessarily pertain to that subject. But at this time, we have designated this space for Mr. Neely Fuller to speak about his book. Mr. Fuller?
Yes, the textbook for victims of white supremacy called the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. And it covers a lot of the things we're talking about now. Okay? A lot of the questions that people ask, these questions in the form of suggestions. See, Neely Fuller has not worked out the answer to the race problem. The only way you solve the race problem, anybody has answers to the race problem, I don't care who they are, white or non-white, is somebody who has already solved it. Everybody else is just making an infantile attempt, if they're making any attempt at all. The attempt is infantile. Infantile meaning it's weak. Why has it been proven to be weak? Including the compensatory concept, the textbook for victims of racism by Neely Fuller. It includes him too. Why? Because the problem hasn't been solved. People got theories, but none of these theories have solved the problem so far. It's not done until it's done. So I have some suggestions from my viewpoint about how best, from the victim's viewpoint, to go about doing what? Solving the entire race problem of the entire planet. That's what I tried to write. Anybody who's doing any writing and who's doing it seriously about the race problem should have that in mind. That's just my opinion. Now, a lot of people may disagree, but if you sit down to write anything about race, it shouldn't be to peck around the edges of it. It should be, what can I write that will actually, if it's put into practice, solve the race problem and do it in record time? I mean, do it like overnight, not any drawn-out thing, maybe one of these days in the sweet by and by, I mean, we shall overcome. No, slam dunk. What formulas can I come up that will take care of this thing and wrap up this age-old problem almost overnight? That should be what's in mind. Now, that's what I sat down to do. You know, somewhere along the way. I didn't have that as an objective in the beginning, but somewhere along the way I said, why not try to write a book that's designed from the victim's viewpoint, starting from scratch, to unravel the entire thing called the system of white supremacy and replace it with justice. And so you can get this book, my little contribution to trying to do that, if you can call it that, by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And most of what I have to say about the race problem and what to do about it as an individual person is in this book. producejustice.com.
All righty. producejustice.com. Okay, now, Mr. Fuller, for this question, you're going to have to get the revised expanded edition, because this person, GG8, has written this. It says, Mr. Fuller, on page 46, the second paragraph from the top. So let's go to page 46. Okay, got the second paragraph. From the top of the revised edition of Mr. Fuller's compensatory code book, he explains that the constructive result achieved through the use of the best possible solution to a problem should be regarded as the code. And on page 47, the code seems to refer to the thought, speech, and action, meaning the methods used to get the result. Is that a mistake on page 46?
Well, page 46 is where it says what paragraph?
In the second paragraph, he says, and it reads as follows, if you have page 46, it says, every time you have a problem, think about
all of the different ways that you can probably solve that problem.
Yes, go ahead.
Study each of these ways and try what appears to be the very best solution to that problem.
Mm-hmm.
If the very best of what you try to produce, produces a constructive result, regard that result as the code for that specific problem. Codify everything that you say or do. Now, where is the contradiction on page 47?
Well, he says this, under code. You see it on page 47, and you can read that also.
Yes. It says facts about the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept.
But he went under code, because you have it written down.
No, under code, it says, means that each individual victim of racism speaks and or acts to help eliminate racism by utilizing selections from a list of suggestions or from a combined list of suggestions designed to help an individual victim of racism accomplish that purpose.
Okay.
I don't see a contradiction there.
Well, he said, meaning the message he said, is that a mistake on page 46?
No.
Okay.
According to compensatory logic, if you codify everything that you do and say, and do so with the intent of producing a constructive result, the combined result of the codification is likely to be constructive. In other words, if you set out to do something constructive, you're following the code right there.
Mm-hmm.
See, the word constructive is very important to simplify this whole conversation. Anytime you're doing anything of constructive value, that is a threat to the system of white supremacy. Anytime you're engaging in something stupid or foolish, celebrating holidays, drinking whiskey and all like that, just ask yourself, is this constructive? Does this help my body and mind to do anything in the field of doing what? See, that word constructive was associated with another word that we started off with in this program, and that was what? A two-part phrase, you might say.
Mm-hmm.
Problem solving. That is black people's greatest flaw. We don't concentrate constantly on problem solving, all the details. I mean, what makes a faucet work and not work? What makes a light switch? Some places in the world you have electric lighting. Why is it that when I turn the switch on, the lights come on? And sometimes it doesn't. And so I'll look into how all of that works. See, problem solving calls for concentration on learning. Make every situation a learning situation. Just don't sit back and wait on somebody to put everything in place, and then you come in and take a look around and say, this is nice. That's what slaves are taught to do. After they do all the heavy lifting, of course, but all the brain work was done in the system of white supremacy by the white supremacists. They don't want you to use your brain to figure anything out.
Yes.
Because once you start doing that, you start problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
And no black person is ever supposed to be in a problem solving mode in the system of white supremacy.
Right.
When you do that, you're really stealing the white supremacist turf.
1-877-932-9766 is the number that you can call to get in contact with the show, and the phone lines are now open. We are discussing, for today's topic, sex in the system of racism, white supremacy. Now, if you have the revised, expanded edition of the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept, if you have that, the 8th area of people activity starts on page 275 and ends on page 357. A very large discussion and suggestions on sex. And one of the things that was on there, Mr. Fuller, and you've already mentioned it today, was a question that was asked on that page 279. It says, what is the correct thing to say in regards to most criticism that white people make about the sexual behavior of non-white people? And you answered that say this: considering the tacky, trashy, terroristic, and tragic record of sexual behavior of white people with, and then you put against, non-white people, no white person is correctly qualified to say anything derogatory or belittling about the mutual sexual and or anti-sexual behavior of any non-white person. I brought that out because you have a lot of questions in this section, along with a lot of answers or suggestions how to deal with the question that people have. What say you to that, Mr. Fuller?
Yes. Yes. When a white person starts criticizing the sexual activities of any black person, any white person, anywhere on the planet, anytime, according to the code, they're not qualified to do that. Why? Because they have made black people subordinate to them. And a lot of the things we do that shouldn't be done, which is just about everything that you can name, that they push on us and whatnot and say this is the way to go about doing it and whatnot, is not the correct thing to do. So really they're indicting themselves when they say something about black people's sexual behavior. I mean, they are our teachers. I mean, they are our teachers. So they are indicting themselves. So they got a lot of nerve talking about black people's sexual behavior. I mean, come on. Stop it. You're not qualified. You say that to all the white people of the entire planet, both those who are white supremacists and those who are not. You're not qualified to make any derogatory remarks about black people's sexual behavior. Why? What's the reason you're not qualified? Because their sexual behavior has mostly been steered by the white supremacists themselves.
Yeah, you tell them.
Under the system of white supremacy. So they have guided us in this direction and that direction.
Okay,
now they're even telling us that black males that, hey, you'd be better off if you were a black female.
Okay, I'm going to leave it right there so we can get to the second hour. TalkTimeRadio.com, the world's greatest radio and radio the way it should be heard. Thank you for the pleasure of your time. We'll see you on the second hour.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come.
The world's greatest radio.
We give you a reason to stay.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTimeRadio.com.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
All righty. Welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio. You are in touch with The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. here on TalkTainmentRadio.com. I am the co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is Radio the Way It Should Be Heard. We are discussing the topic of sex in this system of white supremacy, racism. We've had some calls to that, and Mr. Fuller has gone exhaustively to answering your questions and questions that have been generated by your Gmails. One of the things, that we are discussing. If you look at page 275 in the revised expanded edition to page 357, there are a number of questions and suggestions, topics, notes. If you haven't read that section, you might want to make sure that you get the book, which Mr. Fuller will talk about at the 45-minute mark. But get that book, read it, and try to glean as much understanding as you can. Now, Mr. Fuller, on page 279, that's 279, at the bottom under the notes, there was a little statement that was made. It's in bold black print, right above that, speaking about be aware. Do you have that yet?
I have it.
Okay.
279.
Yeah, and that statement right there, and I'd like to have you speak to that, where it says be aware of everyone's sexual weakness and so forth.
Yes, be aware of everyone's sexual weaknesses, strengths, and peculiarities, including your own. In other words, be honest with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And be aware of other people's sexual weaknesses, strengths, and peculiarities. And there's a lot of peculiarities in everybody's sexuality, because people don't understand their own bodies and minds when it comes to sex, and particularly when you have the input of the system of white supremacy, where it comes to non-white people, in how sex is supposed to be handled. So you got mass confusion, for one thing.
Yeah, you mentioned that in here.
Started off with that. See, one thing, you have mass confusion, and the white supremacists are pushing more confusion when it comes to sexuality.
Yeah, could you read that part where it says be cautious?
It says, be cautious in your judgments and conclusions of anything dealing with sexuality. Be careful in what you say or do that may add confusion about or do greater non-constructive harm to those involved in one or more questionable sexual situations, especially during the existence of white supremacy. Why? Because the system of white supremacy has distorted everything.
Yes.
I mean, we're not even aware of how you're affected, and particularly in the area, the 8th area of activity according to the code, sexual activities. I mean, people just don't know which way to go. And when the white supremacists are just jerking people around in every kind of direction you can name, okay? So you come up getting all kinds of different signals from so many different sources about how do you handle sexuality. I mean, when do you start having sex, and with whom, and how do you go about doing it? And all this thing about the dating scene. You got TV programs and whatnot. And a lot of it is very contradictory and confusing and basically chaotic.
Yes.
So that's why you should say, wait a minute, what's the most constructive thing I can do when it comes to sexuality? Now, the code always says what about problem solving? Getting back to that key term. You know, it's two terms here that have to do that we should always keep in mind in anything dealing with codification. And that is constructive, that word constructive, and the other term, the phrase, problem solving. So therefore you say, now, what can I do that would have the most constructive effect sexually? All right, keep that in mind anytime you're dealing with sex or any other areas of activity. What can I do that would have the most constructive result? And what can I try to influence other people to do that would have the most constructive result? Okay, to get to the mechanics of it, which is what codification is all about, what to do and what not to do. So on page 278, like the person from South Africa called in a little while ago and said, what's the best thing you can do under these actually horrific and terrible and tragic circumstances? It's all tragic. Everything is tragic. All right? There's nothing that you can say that's really pure anywhere. Okay? So on page 278, page 298.
298. Wait a minute.
Yes.
Let me get there. Wait a minute. 298.
Page 298 of the revised revised edition of the basic textbook.
Okay, I'm there.
Right. Starting toward near the center of the page, starting with the word before.
Oh, I see it in bold print.
Yeah, before the first act of sexual intercourse and or sexual play with any non-white person, mutually agree to ask and truthfully answer all of the following questions, plus whatever additional questions that may come to mind. And I think it runs into something like 130 questions.
Yeah.
That is before you have sexual intercourse with anybody. The suggestion, now you don't have to take the suggestions, you can skip over the suggestions, but it should be about 130 questions. Your usual line of questions, a male and a female ask each other come somewhere between 15 and maybe 40, I would say. 15 is kind of like run-of-the-mill. 40 is about maximum. You ask maybe about 40 questions, and then you're ready for the bedroom. Most people come way short of the 40 questions.
You ain't even lying about that one.
Yes, most people, before they head toward the bedroom, they don't ask and answer 40 questions. There's usually somewhere around the neighborhood of 15.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and usually, just basic questions. Are you married? Are you in a relationship? How many children do you have?
Exactly.
Where do you work?
Mm-hmm.
And that comes to maybe, it will top off of maybe around 15 or 20. Very seldom does it reach 40. But I'm saying there should be at least 130 and maybe more. It might top off at something like 212 or something.
Yeah, that's what Libby said.
But I have made a suggestion of about 130, which I think would satisfy most people if they agree. Both parties, both male and female, ask and answer the same questions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all democratic. The questions that you don't want to ask and answer, if you go ahead and have sexual intercourse without answering and asking these questions, you can't say that you regret not having done it later on.
Mm-hmm.
See what I mean?
Yes, sir.
You should agree. If it's something that you just definitely don't want to talk about, you say you don't want to talk about that, so you skip over it.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, you skipped over it.
You skipped over it. Now, when we started the second hour, with this, one of the things that you said was that we have to understand that in the system of white supremacy, racism, that we have been taught, the black folk, non-white folk, have been taught by them to do this thing, which added to and produced confusion, and that it was on purpose. I would say, Mr. Fuller, and maybe you can correct me if I am wrong, but if people were to be honest with themselves and ask themselves that question about sex, when did they first encounter sex and what happened, if truth be told, if people are really honest with themselves about that particular information, that particular subject, they would have to conclude that the way that they were taught was wrong, was incorrect. I never heard about asking questions or at least, these many questions, to get down to it. What say you on that? Do you feel that most people are not honest even with themselves when it comes to asking questions about this, or how did they learn about sex? Could they conclude that racist men and racist women taught them what they understood about sex?
Absolutely. That's what I started off, answering the question from the person who called in from South Africa.
Yes.
I said, we're completely poisoned. All of us. Not only when it comes to sexuality, but when it comes to anything of any serious consequence in economics, education, entertainment. It's all tragic. It's just as tragic as it can be. There's nothing that comes anywhere close to the qualifications for what I say and what I put in the textbook, being universal man and universal woman, in tune with the very best that can ever possibly be in the entire universe. That's what we should be heading for. Just not getting rid of racism. That's the first step. But also, with it in mind, we are going to become universal man and universal woman. I mean, with universal principles that always produce the best possible result that could ever be produced by anybody, anywhere, in any area of activity, any time of day or night.
Yes.
That should be our goal.
That should be our goal.
Okay.
And that in itself, Mr. Fuller, this is me, that in itself is one reason to purchase the book. Mr. Fuller did not ask me to push this book, but just listening to what he had to say would be one reason to purchase the book and try to get some understanding, not just in the area of sex, but in all these areas, because we have to understand that we are in the prison system of white supremacy, have been. And these are the things that they have taught us. Let's go to the Gmails. This comes from Dale. He says this, Mr. Fuller, there was a caller that called in towards the end of the show on September the 5th who kept trying to pit what Mr. Fuller says against what another respected spokesperson in our community advocates for said. Both Mr. Fuller and this other spokesman have appeared together in the past at some speaking events, and I call to tell you 1,000% with confidence that this other black spokesperson has never said that white supremacy is an illusion. So props to you, Mr. Fuller, as usual, for not giving into these attempts by some callers to try and spread lies, misinformation, and confusion amongst our ranks, who say on one end that folks like you, Mr. Fuller, and those in the academic world should work together, but then start pointing out how you all differ. I despise those attempts to keep us at each other's throats, and it's common on social media. And Mr. Bobby, you too will be aware of some of these callers who call in with their own axe to grind an agenda with another victim of white supremacy by trying to get Mr. Fuller to say something against them so they can get the soundbite and play it like, see, I told you that there was wrong with the way to do things. So, Mr. Fuller, I just wanted to get that off of my chest for my VGQ piece of the day. That was from one of our lawyers listeners who felt to make that comment under VGQ. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Okay, line one? Okay, go ahead. Caller, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. Two questions. Has white supremacy as a destructive produce a constructive outcome for the white supremacist people?
Hello?
Yeah.
Can I be heard?
Yeah, go ahead.
That was see as a destructive force produce a for the white supremacists and white people.
Mr. Fuller, did you hear the question?
It seems like it was broken up.
Okay, caller, could you ask that one more time?
Certainly. Has white supremacy as a destructive force produced a constructive outcome for the white supremacists and white people?
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
Yes, but on a limited basis, because the system of white supremacy itself is a poisonous system. And poisons have a tendency to feed on itself. Anything that's kind of alien to what should be in the body politic. So, do whites, if I understand the question, do white people suffer from the system of white supremacy? And the answer is yes, but not...
No, I didn't ask that. I didn't ask that question. If they
okay. All right.
I didn't ask that.
Okay. The question is, so that I'll understand.
Okay. I'm sorry for interrupting. The question was, has white supremacy as a destructive force produced a constructive outcome for the white supremacists and white people?
Okay.
Constructive
Has it
outcome
produced a constructive outcome?
for the white supremacists and white people.
The answer is yes, as far as their criteria is concerned.
Yes.
Their criteria is what? Fun, glory,
and
material comfort based on mistreating non-white people. That's what white supremacy is. They get three things out of it: fun, glory, and material comfort. That's what all creatures want. But the way they want it is through the process of mistreating people of color. They found out a standard for doing that, and it worked very well for what they wanted. But it's illegitimate when you think about what is constructive for everybody and what is non-constructive. Then that falls in the non-constructive category. Why? Because you get fun, you get glory, and you get material comfort, but you get it from mistreating people. No people should ever be mistreated, regardless of the reason, or regardless of, what scheme you come up with for getting what you want. Those three things that everybody wants. All creatures want them. Squirrels want it. Alligators want it. They want fun. They want glory. And they want material comfort. All creatures want that. Babies want it. Okay? But it's how you go about getting it. That's where the problem is. Somebody discovered a way of saying that anybody with color in his or her skin is eligible to be mistreated by anybody who doesn't have color. And that would be someone with what is called sometimes the non-color white. Okay? So you are eligible to mistreat anybody who has color.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore you get fun, you get glory, and you get material comfort.
Okay. What is your second question, sir?
It was a Okay, thanks for answering my question honestly. I appreciate that, Mr. Fuller. And also, with that being said, since it's yes, should non-white people, same principle, to produce a constructive result for the majority of the non-white people that are suffering right now?
Oh, what do you replace white supremacy with? That's the way I usually put it, in the form of a question. What do you replace? If you're going to replace white supremacy, racism, what are you going to replace it with that will be better? And it says on the back. It says on the back of the book,
mm-hmm.
Justice is better than racism. That is on the back of the textbook for victims of white supremacy. Just that statement. Justice is better than racism. Racism produces a lot of things. You can get a lot out of racism. You can get a lot of things done, material-wise, but you destroy millions of people in the process. You just throw away people like they are nothing. In order to have some machine or have somebody just, lie around on a beach and watch the sailboats go by, and wave at your friends and whatnot. But the cost of doing that means somebody in the Congo is suffering in some mine somewhere, or dying somewhere, miserably, or being beaten, or kicked around, or being enslaved, basically, all right, by the white supremacists, either directly or indirectly, getting some diamonds out of a place, or getting some coal, or getting some type of chemical substance in order for someone to just walk around and prance around and show off in a fancy dress somewhere in Paris, who is white, and a few non-white people doing the same thing, being taught to copy it. That's not justice. Justice is better than racism, theoretically, but justice has never been produced by anybody. That is where black people are supposed to be trying to replace the non-white people of the planet, should be 24/7 trying to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. Now, what is justice? By definition, compensatory definition, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. That's the type of system we want.
Yes.
And then use that to produce something called universal man and universal woman. That can include white people being universal man and universal woman if they meet the qualifications.
Yes, sir. Okay. TalkTainmentradio.com is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. And here's one that I'm going to share with you very quickly, and it's simply entitled Your Time to Travel. And it's hosted by Brother Ricky Tyus, and he will discuss all the latest information on traveling, not just here, but all across or all around the world. All around the world. Give you the latest information on topics. And, of course, you can call into the show and ask your specific questions to him. But it's your time to travel. And all you have to do is go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage, click on programs, and then there you have it. Find it, and there you have it, and get all the latest information. That's from TalkTainmentRadio.com. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Our topic today is sex, the 8th area of people activity, and we've been discussing that. We also talked about the suggested movies that Mr. Fuller is compiling. And here is a question from Brother Everett. He says this: good morning, Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller often says that there are lessons learned in films. I recently watched The Longest Yard remake with Burt Reynolds. In this movie, there was a scene with a prison guard played by Stone Cold Steve Austin. He knocked over a stack of books and ordered a prisoner played by rap star Neely to pick them up. Neely complied. Then the guard called him the N-word and asked him, does that bother him? Neely simply replied, no, sir, and returned to work without reacting. According to the code, is this the correct response since he was in greater confinement, Mr. Fuller? Thank you.
And he was called the N-word, and then he was asked the question.
Yeah,
did it bother him?
Yeah, the guard called him the N-word and asked him, does that bother him? And Neely simply replied, no, sir, and returned to work without reacting. Now, according to the code, is this the correct response since he was in greater confinement?
Yes, that would be what I would do. It wouldn't bother me. He's already done it. I mean, whomever put me in there, if it's on a bogus charge, particularly, have already by definition made me that. Okay? That's what you do. And that's what I am in the system of white supremacy anyway. That's what they do to people. You know, that's you add the term to the basic word, risation. See what I mean? That's the process. You know, you're not born that, but when you're imprisoned by the system of white supremacy, that's what they have done to you. They have made you that. Mm-hmm. That very word, that N-word, it fits. Because by the compensatory counter-racist definition textbook, the word guide, codified word guide, that word is in there. The N-word is in there. And what is the definition of it? Words have definitions. And so I gave it a compensatory definition. The N-word is, by definition, a victim of white supremacy. Once you are no longer a victim of white supremacy, you are no longer the N-word. You might be black, all right, but you're just black or non-white. But you are not the N-word. It doesn't fit. Why? Because you're not subject to white supremacy. The minute you become subject to white supremacy, that by evidence makes you that N-word, because the definition, see, if you look in most dictionaries, you will find that the N-word means what? A derogatory term of a person who is Negroid, of African descent, etc., etc., etc. Now, a lot of people call it the magic word because it makes people angry. But they don't really know why they're angry, all right, except somebody said it's a derogatory term for a dark-skinned person, okay? But here's the key to the power of that word that I discovered a long time ago, and I was kind of puzzled that no one else had discovered it, no one that I'd ever talked to. I said, where is the power in that word? What makes that word so powerful? Because it doesn't have a definition. That's what makes it powerful. The minute you give any word a definition, you limit its power, all right? That's just the magic of language. But you can come up with any word and not give it a definition, and you can jerk people around forever. Now, go back to the dictionary definition. It says derogatory. That's the key term right there. It's a derogatory term. Now, why is that a key term? Because it doesn't tell you why it's derogatory. Now, every professor, every scholar, every person listening to what is being said right now, think about that. What makes that N-word derogatory? What makes it so powerful as the N-word? Because it doesn't have a definition. The definition says it's derogatory, but when you say something is derogatory, it should be followed by why it's derogatory. But it never says that, and that's where the power is. It never says why it's a derogatory term. It just says it's derogatory when you apply it to a dark-skinned person. It's derogatory. Well, why is it derogatory? Well, hey, that's for me to know and you to find out. Ha, ha, ha. And that is what sets people off.
Yeah.
All right?
All righty.
So when you give it a definition, and I say the definition functionally means you're just subject to white supremacy. That's all. So what else is new?
Okay. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Let's take this phone call. Okay, caller, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Yes, I have a question about as far as us coming over here from Africa, being slaves. I would like to know Mr. Fuller's opinion about what do you think about us being just a whole new race of people, as far as us coming over here from Africa and never, getting to communicate back with the people over there in Africa, and we just started over here in the U.S. and we just mixed with everything that's over here, and we like the beginning of the Hawaiian people or something like that, and however many a few hundred years is the only amount of time that the people that we really are that's over here in America has existed. And that's why we it's so hard on us, because we never, we just started. Our people, the people that's over here in America, we only existed for like however many hundred years, and I was just wondering what do you think about this.
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
If I understand the question, if he's talking about unity, you don't unite with people. That's what I wrote in the book. That's a flawed concept, in my opinion. That's strictly my opinion. You unite with a concept, and then the concept automatically will have the people in harmony with each other. First, you have a philosophy, a concept, an idea of what you're supposed to be doing on the planet, and you do this as an individual person. Then you make a code that will lead you to fulfill the concept. The concept meaning basically doing all the things that are of constructive value, problem solving. I go right back to that phrase. Be a problem solver on a daily basis. Now, when you do that, if you're a black person and you're a problem solver, if you get to be known as a problem solver, I mean, people gravitate toward people who solve problems. That's just a natural instinct. I mean, females, gravitate toward a male who's a problem solver. That's where that word handsome came from. I believe that. I haven't looked it up, but I think, when they say, oh, he's handsome, he got some hands, meaning he can do things. See, that goes back to the basic primitive stage or the emphasis stage. I mean, a person, because if your brain is in concert with your hands and your brain is telling your hands to do something of constructive value, it's something magic that starts happening. When you are a person that can take your brain, match that with your hands, and start getting things done that need doing, putting a roof over somebody's head, or building a boat, or you're doing things. You're handsome. You got some hands. But in order to have those hands do the things that hands should do and be in the correct place at the correct time, doing the correct thing, and that's guided by a thing called a brain, all right? People are attracted to that, all right? And that person becomes handsome. Even if you can call even a female handsome. She's a handsome female. Why? Because her brain and her hands kind of work together to produce what? Constructive results.
Yes, sir.
Constructive results like what? Problem solving. Everybody has problems.
Yes.
But now somebody walks up who is a problem solver, that person becomes what? Automatically, I've seen it. That person becomes attractive.
Okay.
A person that just looks like any other person, I mean, you see him coming down the road, that person doesn't mean much of anything to you except that person is just another person. But if that person gets to be known as a problem solver, everybody gravitates toward that person. And so that is the thing to concentrate on.
Oh.
And that's what you get your unity from.
Okay. All righty. Let me do this. Go ahead, caller. You're now on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Okay, Mr. Fuller, quite often on the show you mention constructive and non-constructive behavior. So here's the question. If there's a choice between constructive, do black people have a choice to be constructive or non-constructive? And if they do, then why do we have so much non-constructive behavior going on in our communities?
Okay.
Because the white supremacists glorify non-constructive behavior among non-white people. They'll reward you if you write a song and that song leads people to think about doing something non-constructive. The white supremacists will say, hey, come into my studio. You can record right now. And we're going to spread this all over the world. I mean, line up all the people who are called South Africans and Congolese and whatnot, because they're going to follow our lead. We got the technology and all like that. So you just line them up. I mean, come right into my recording studio. How many millions do you want? Okay, give that boy, hey, $50 million right now. Hey, sign here, and this is going to be, and when people hear this, they're going to go into non-constructive activity. They're going to be killing each other. I mean, they're going to be pushing the females around, dogging them around, and all like that. Hey, write another one. Get it out on the burner as fast as you can. That's just one example. But the white supremacists are that way about everything. They will finance a black person to the hilt. I mean, they give you unlimited amounts of money if you are going to do something or say something non-constructive that's going to have a non-constructive effect on whom? On non-white people. All right? That's what they do. I mean, that's what they're in business for. Yeah, anything non-constructive. If you come around fixing to do something constructive, they'll give you credit for it and all like that on the side, and they'll give you money. But they will seize what you do.
Yes.
They will take that.
Oh, yes.
And use that for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
All right? If you're George Washington Carver or somebody like that, oh, yeah, bring that boy in here. All right? And we'll hide him from the other black people, and we'll make him our own. I mean, real close.
They do that.
Bring him into the big house of the plantation, all right? And cultivate him and make him very comfortable, all right? But don't let him have too much contact with the rest of the non-white people, because he'll be spreading that constructive activity.
Okay.
And we can't have that among the people who we want always to depend on us for anything of constructive value. But let them have all the garbage that they want.
Okay, let's do this here. We're getting ready to come up on the 45-minute mark, which is usually the time that we have Mr. Fuller to speak about his book, in which we will. But for those of you who have the revised, expanded edition to help you out, or for those who are thinking about getting it, as Mr. Fuller, or purchasing the book, as Mr. Fuller will talk about, if you turn to page 47 of the revised, expanded edition, if you look at, it said facts about the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept. If you look at that, look at how Mr. Fuller has that set up. The word united gives you the definition. Independent, compensatory, code, system, and then you turn the page, and then there is a concept. It's all right there to give you an understanding on what's going on with this book and what you are faced against. And one thing that I thought that was really special, Mr. Fuller, was on page 55, and you double bold printed it. It said special compensatory notice. Oh, that's deep. For those of you who do not have the book, you need to get the book. Mr. Fuller is not paying me to say this. I'm just saying this because you need to get this book to get some understanding. Look at that. Special compensatory notice. Double bold right in there. Mr. Fuller, this is the time for you to speak about your book. The floor is yours.
Yes, you can get the book by going to producejustice.com. A lot of people, call me sometimes. Some people have called me on the phone, or sometimes they've run into me and asked me, well, Fuller, you keep talking about the race problem, and, but where's, what do we do? I said, have you read the book?
Uh-huh.
Have you looked at the book? Yeah, I got your book. I've had your book for years. I mean, but I think it's time for black people to make a move. And so, what are the moves that we make? I said, well, and I'm telling people this all the time. I said, you just told me you have the book. He said, yeah, I read the book. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in that book. And, and hey, it's right on point. And I agree with you on a whole lot of things. There's some things I'm a little confused about, but for the most part, I got the book a long time ago. In fact, I got a couple of copies, And then I say, well, and you asking me, what do we do? Say, yeah, now that I'm talking to you, what do we do? That's what I'm trying to figure out. I mean, we know that, the man, we know that white supremacy exists, and we understand all that. Most of us do. I mean, that ain't nothing new for a lot of us, who are students of what's going on in the world and keep up with what's going on. And I think I'm a pretty good student of what's going on in the world. But, this race problem, and you're the person who's talking about it all the time, and I got your book, but I just want to know, what do we do? And then sometimes I'm silent. And I said, you told me you had the book. You listened to the programs. That's all I talk about in the book and on the programs. I don't talk about anything else, I don't think. I talk about what we do and what not to do. Everything is about doing something and not doing something. That's how I tried to write the book. Now, I'm not the best writer in the world, and that's kind of obvious to me. But I would like to write, and I've said this for years, I'd like to write at the 5th grade level. All right? Then, but when, under the system of white supremacy, when the white supremacists give you a lot of words, you have a tendency to use them. If these words are in your head, you most likely will use the words that are in your head. It's a difficult thing to avoid. But actually, I use too many words to say the same thing. And somebody had to point that out to me years ago, way before I started writing the code book. Somebody pointed it out to me. They said, because, you know, going to school and all like that, you learn to use, they say, increasing your vocabulary. Well, yes, that works so that you understand people when they say things, but actually, the best languages are the languages that say everything in a few words. All right? So we might have to just look at the English language or Swahili or whatever and try to cut down on the number of words and say the same thing and say it better. Something that it would take 15 pages to say, like a person demonstrated to me could be done, you can say it in 2 paragraphs. All right? That was actually done to me, or done with me, or done in support of what I was trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I realized it. It was pointed out. Say, sometimes you can say in 2 paragraphs everything that you say in 15 pages of small print. And you can say it in 2 paragraphs in bold print.
More with less.
I wish I could write like that.
Yes.
All right?
All right.
But getting back to the book, you can get the book by going to producejustice.com. And what the book is about is what an individual person can do each and every day.
Yes.
Or should be doing, suggestions, and not doing in order to solve problems, including the race problem as the first one.
Okay.
Go to producejustice.com. Producejustice.com.
All righty. And again, check out page 55 of the Revised Expanded Edition and see what Mr. Fuller wrote. Double bold print, special compensatory notice. Mr. Fuller, on page number 319 of that Revised Expanded Edition, at the bottom, or near the bottom, in bold lettering, could you read and then respond to that statement under the explanations? Starting with, as a non-white male?
At the bottom of 319?
Yeah, starting there, as a non-white male.
As a non-white male, whatever you choose to say is a fault. Let's see now, wait a minute. Let me say that again. As a non-white male.
Yes.
Whatever you choose to say is a fault of any non-white female, also be willing to say that her fault is your failure. I'm going to say that again. If you're a non-white male and you're talking to a non-white female and you're willing to say that she has a fault of any kind, also you should be willing to say that her fault is your failure. Because that's the truth. The non-white male was strutting around, acting like he was boss over something, knew everything, knew how to handle every situation before the beginning of white supremacy, according to history records of what I've been told, either true or false. But if he was doing that, the white supremacists took him and his non-white female.
Mm-hmm.
All right? That black male that said, this is my woman, the white supremacist said, that's not your woman anymore. That's my woman. That's my female. All right? And you are my male. And both of you are my slaves. All right? So you no longer have any authority over anything. So right from the beginning, the black male, who was supposed to be the protector, pounding himself on the chest, walking around with his chest stuck out and flexing his muscles, once he became in captivity himself, that was the failure of the black female. That was his failure, all right? Since that was his job, he said, he didn't do it. So he failed at that job and has failed ever since, okay? So whatever failures and faults she has, they're his.
Go on and complete that where it says your failure to do what?
your failure to do what needs to be done to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. And that's every black male right now in 2018. Anytime you start criticizing a black female for anything, wait a minute. You were supposed to see to it that she wasn't in the situation that you're in, that she's in, because you're not supposed to be in the situation that you're in.
Exactly.
You are subject to the system of white supremacy. Now, how did you get to be that way with your all-knowing self? How did you become subject to an alien power if you were doing your job? You weren't doing your job. You were too busy strutting around bragging about knowing everything.
Under the explanation...
And you didn't know how to resist the system of white supremacy. So your failure in not knowing what to do about that is whatever failure she has, that's your failure.
That's your failure. Could you go ahead and explain that under explanation? Read that part there. I thought that was...
During the existence of racism and according to compensatory counter-racist logic, it is correct to say that the faults and the failures of non-white people, particularly non-white males, are the direct or indirect result of their not thinking, speaking, and acting effectively to replace the system of racism with the system of justice.
Wow. Wow. Very powerful statement.
Our failure, Neely Fuller's failure, to do his job. He's not doing it now. All right? So any criticism that I might have of the black female, that's because of me. Why? Because I failed to do anything about a system that came dominant over me and destructive of me and everything I'm connected with. And that is the system of white supremacy. I wasn't on guard against that.
Now I understand why you have referred to us as being boy. I understand.
We are boys. I mean, my manhood left with the system of white supremacy stepped in the door.
Wow.
I no longer was a man, if I was one in the beginning, because I didn't know what to do about that system that came in, kicking in the door. All right?
Boy?
Yes. And made, if I was a man, it made a boy out of me, and I've been a boy ever since. And I will remain a boy until I replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. That's the truth. Neely Fuller and every other black male who is truthful, we got to swallow that.
Yes, sir.
And take that to the bank.
That's a hard one.
Yes, but we got to swallow the truth. Don't never run away from the truth. Grab it, embrace it, and say, now, I got to roll up my sleeves.
Yeah, what do I do about it?
I got a lot of work to do. So the foolishness is out.
Boy, that was really powerful, and it is. That again, this is why the book is necessary. It's a guide. It's a code. Every man has to have a code. And what did you say a code was, Mr. Fuller?
A code is nothing but a way of going about doing things that you get the best possible result. That's all a code is. A wasp has a code. Sometimes I watch insects and whatnot. They have a routine. And why do they keep doing this routine? Because it's successful. See, an ant will not keep trying to do something that doesn't work. Okay? But black people have been trained by the white supremacists to always do everything that doesn't work. All right? Until the white supremacists come around and makes it work.
Yeah, let me get this in right quick before we have to close the show. I just got this in. It says, greetings. I really appreciate you suggesting to the listeners to get the code book and read the code book. I have a request or suggestion in addition to you recommending the listeners to get and read the code book. Can you ask the callers who call in to the live broadcast before they ask their question or make their VGQ statements, have they personally read the code book? This would only take a second, and then they could proceed with their questions and or comment. This would be very helpful for victims of racism to help them better understand where the comprehension and deficiencies may be coming from and could help the counter racist code. You know, we're out of show. Thank you for listening.